A true confessions disclaimer before we get into this. I am speaking on one of my soapbox issues and speaking from the point of a single person. And so this is not to negate the beauty and benefits of marriage, but this is just my experience. Why is it that in church, singleness is somehow seen as this like second class thing? And maybe not second class. I might be exaggerating a little bit. But it's kind of this season of life that is just this like waiting game until you get married. And that really bugs me because it takes away the beauty of a season of life that God has given us. Like nowhere in the Bible do I recall it saying you are not able to do the things that I've called you to until you get married. But for some reason, the church, and maybe it's the American church, I don't know. I haven't spent a lot of time in churches in other places in the world. But there's just something about being a single adult that makes people, they want to fix you. And I don't know if it's just like this drive that we have to be in community, because God did give us that, right? Like God purposed to put us in community and family, and so our mind wraps around that concept as it relates to relationship. But not every single person, and by single person I mean people who are single, is in a season of wanting to be married. And some people really are. So could we possibly just honor each individual and not assume that we know what they want? And also as single people, because I'm speaking to myself here, but as single people, can we honor the season that God has us in and not be so desperate to be out of it that we miss what God has for us in this season? This is going to be a multi-part conversation. I'm going to be sharing about my experience as a single person, my journey. I'm going to be sharing some encouragements I have for others who are in this season, and also speaking to marrieds out there. What do you need to know about what it means to be single, and how can you support the singles in your life? Because I think it's a really important thing, and it's how we are community to each other. Not assuming that we know what somebody else is going through, not assuming that we understand what that season of life means, because to each person it's very individualized. People in a lot of different seasons of singleness. You've got people in their early 20s, you've got people in their 30s, you've got people who have been married and now are divorced and are single, you have people who have been widowed, you have people who have a lot of hurts around singleness. It's a complicated topic, and so I think that's part of why we don't address it, because we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to generalize a category that has so much nuance and so much individuality to it. But that's kind of the point, is that we need to understand the individuality of it. We need to be willing to talk about singleness. It's not a taboo subject. I'm speaking very generally here. That there is something about being single, especially being single in church. Everybody feels like they can speak into your life as it relates to relationship. Like, oh, you're single? I know this other single person. You guys should probably go out together. Just because I'm single and he's single doesn't mean that we're a match made in heaven, okay? Perhaps we are. But there's a lot more to relationship than just my relationship status. And I will tell you that I have been very hurt by people in the church who don't honor what I'm walking through. Because I was part of a women's Bible study, and the last week of this study we created vision boards, and it was a super fun experience. The study had been kind of focused on you as a woman and who God has made you to be, and how women are uniquely different, and it was this really great, empowering, encouraging experience. And then we get to the last week and we're making vision boards, And this woman in the group opens up a magazine and finds a picture of a guy and turns to me and says, "Oh, look, Matina, here's a picture of a guy. I'm sure you want that for your vision board." Well, no, I did not. Because as I was visioning my life, as I was praying and asking God what the next year of my life was supposed to look like, getting married was not part of that. Now, that's not to say that I don't desire marriage at some point in my life, and that's not to say that I haven't gone through seasons of being really sad and grieving that my life doesn't look like the way that I thought it would look like. But no, just because I was like 25 and single does not mean that I automatically want a man. And though she had like the best of intentions, she just didn't know me. And instead of getting to know me, getting to understand my season of life, getting to understand where God had me, and if that was something that I wanted, she just assumed. And it can be really hurtful when you are, especially if you are kind of feeling like God is calling you against the grain, which I think in a lot of things God calls us to go against the grain, to go against what culture would say. It made it harder because not only do I have to battle my own insecurities, but now I have to explain to you why I don't want that on my vision board. So I just politely said, "No, that's okay. I've got my own thing going here." Could we possibly not treat singles like they just haven't come into some amazing thing yet? Now, again, this is from my experience, so it's not to negate the beauty that God has designed in marriage. But it's just to say that those are two different things. One is not a stepping stone to something else. There is singleness and there is marriage. And God has purpose and intention and things to be learned in both of those things. But singleness is not just a waiting game until you're married. Let's just think for a moment. How many sermon series have you heard on marriage? And how many have you heard on singleness? Right. Now, I have had some preachers preach on singleness, or as part of their preaching on marriage, they talk about singleness. I appreciate that a lot. But if we don't start intentionally talking about singleness, how to prepare for it, right, with our teenagers, how to live in it, how to do it well, all of the things that we talk about with marriage, we also need to talk about with singleness. Because we don't just, we may stumble into it in the sense of like we are single until we are married or until we are in a relationship. But being in the season doesn't mean you really are in the season. Does that make sense? Like, I can be single, like check that relationship status box of single, without pressing in, without understanding what it means to really embrace singleness, to grow in singleness, to not just understand what God has for me, but to wear it proudly. And not like, I'm single, I'm proud, hey, guy over there, you should pay attention to me. But to embrace it and stand in it and be excited about it. Like, I am a 30-year-old single woman, and I love it. I love it because it's exactly what God has for me right now. I love it because of the things that being single has allowed me to do in terms of investing in other people, financially, being able to explore the world, being able to take different jobs. Being single is awesome. I'm sure being married is awesome too. I just can't speak to that. So I'm not going to claim it because it's not my experience. could we please, one, stop pretending like, or stop acting like you're just in this holding pattern? That singleness is preparation for marriage. Because maybe singleness is preparation for doing what God has for you. Ever think about that? Also, could we stop assuming like every single person wants to be married? Single people, stop being bitter about not being married. The more you spend time being irritated that your life doesn't look like somebody else's, the more you miss out on what God is doing in you right now. Because let me tell you this, you are not where you are by accident. It's not like God forgot about you. Oh, whoops, Matina's still single. Forgot about her. No, that is not God. That is not how he works. He knows that I'm single. He is very aware, partly because I talked to him about it a heck of a lot. But he knows. A big part of my journey has been lots of ups and downs. And wrestling with my own self-identity and self-esteem. I never wanted to be so upset about not being married that it prevented me from being in community with people. And again, it's not to say that this has not been a really difficult journey, because it has. And I love being single because it's where God has me. And I think if I was married, I hope that I would say that I love being married, or if I was a mom, that I love being a mom. Not that I love every aspect of it or that it's not without its challenges, but I have learned to not only be content, but to thrive where God has me. I love talking about why I'm single and what God's been teaching me and what it means to be a single woman in church. So stay tuned, because the whole rest of this month we are going to be tackling singleness.